For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Without a doubt, you know the jingle, you know the commercials, and you know the man behind them, but I don't know that you know his entire story. I'm referring to Mike Lindell, the creator of MyPillow, and I couldn't be more excited than to welcome him onto our program. It's been months in the making, Mike. You're a busy guy, so thank you in advance for spending time with us.
Well, it's great to be here this morning.
You have quite a story to tell, my friend, and as we speak, I know you're in Orlando shooting another commercial, but headquarters, if I have my facts correct, are in Minnesota, right?
That is correct, yep.
And with all of the choices around the world of places to do what you do through MyPillow, I think it's really cool that you're still made in America, and I'm wondering what led to that commitment.
Well, when I invented MyPillow, there's a couple things. One is I don't trust anyone else to make it, quite frankly. And the other thing is I want to get it's so rewarding with all my employees right out my door, people I grew up with, but even back then, everybody, all of us pitching in. I one time went from 5 employees to 500 in 40 days.
My.
And we at MyPillow, we move so fast you couldn't make it anywhere else anyway. There's a lot of things that come into play when you make stuff overseas. Number one, you better know your footprint. When by the time you get that stuff, it can be 100 to 120 days. And if your sales to change went up or down, and maybe you don't even need it anymore, or maybe you get it and there's something wrong with it. Anyone that says you save money by that, I would never do it.
Hearing you say that you went from 5 to 500 in 40 days is beyond remarkable. What was the big breakthrough moment that caused that explosion?
Well, I was turned down everywhere when I invented MyPillow. I was turned down at box stores and every place, shopping channels everywhere, and I ended up doing home shows and fairs, and I did it on the road for 7 years, making them at night, or making weekends nights and selling them at different places, anywhere there were people, I guess. And then in 2011, I said, I had and in the meantime, I was addicted to crack cocaine. And I had lost everything. I had people taking the company and everything. Well, then I quit that in January 16, 2009. But when I did what I did in 2011, I said, you know what? If no one's going to take me, I'm going to bring it right to the people with an infomercial. And I got my friends and family together, and I said, you guys, we're going to make the biggest infomercial in history. I said, let's go. Just make it real with a real audience. It was just a friend of mine, and it's kind of an interesting fact. Though the night before, this producer guy was there, and I did my reads. He said, "This guy's going to be the worst guy ever." He said, "This guy is terrible. This guy is terrible for you." I was fresh out of addiction, and I had all these fear of rejection, and I couldn't. It was very scary for me to do anything on TV in front of an audience, and he was right. The next day, it took about 7-8 takes for the first line, and I said, you know what, you got to get rid of this teleprompter, and I just have to do it like I'm talking to people at a show. And we did it, and it aired October 7, 2011. I was living in my sister's basement, and it went live, and I had probably 5 to 10 employees, my kids, family, and stuff, and it just exploded. And 40 days later, we had 500 employees.
That's amazing. Well, and I want to come back to that story, that part of the story, but let me set aside the business aspect for a few moments, because the story of your recovery from addiction, I think, Mike, is one of the more inspirational aspects of your life. And away from this microphone, since you and I have never met, I'll bore you for 30 seconds. Away from this microphone, I work with a number of rescue missions around the country in a consulting role to help with their communications and messaging. And quite often I will go and interview men and women who are in recovery programs and trying to put the pieces of their lives back together. And it's an incredible challenge for them. It's an incredible journey when it's successful. But every single time I will ask the person I'm interviewing, what was the moment that you knew you had to get some help, or it was going to be a bad ending to your story? So if you don't mind, let me ask you the same thing. How did you get into that addiction, and what was the dark moment that led to change?
Well, addiction comes from most of it comes from childhood. It can be trauma. It can be fatherlessness. Mine was a divorce. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old. I went to a new school. I turned into either a very shy person or the class clown. It was one or the other. I would jump out window on a bed of a moving bus. I mean, just doing these things to show up. And in the 1980s, I found out if I would see strangers, there's no way I could talk to them. I couldn't. I had this fear of rejection, the fear of unworthiness. I think a lot of addicts go through that. They hide this inner pain. And in the 1980s, then I was introduced to cocaine, and with cocaine, I could talk to anyone. I could do all this stuff, and I'm going, wow, this is. And I was a very functioning addict and that turned to crack cocaine around to the year 2000. And I invented MyPillow in 2004. So I did take a lot of my addictions into that, just kind of dove into inventing this pillow or MyPillow. Well, then an interesting thing happened when I did the home shows and fairs, which probably saved MyPillow, is if I was behind a table, I didn't need the drugs. I didn't need to be in it. So if I was doing MyPillow shows, I could talk to people. If I stepped out from behind that table and small talk, so to speak, or getting to know someone, I couldn't do it. I couldn't talk. I mean, I couldn't do it. And it got up to be 2008. I lost a 20-year marriage, everything. These guys were taking our company. And a lot of things we were facing, but I lost all that. And then in 2008, there were about three things happened. There were seeds that were planted. I knew the pillow was a bigger calling for God. It was a huge calling for me. And the drug dealers actually did an intervention in Minneapolis. I'd been up for 14 days, and they cut me off everywhere, even in the streets. I came back up, and one of them said, you've been telling us for years that this pillow thing is just a platform for God, and you're going to come back and help us someday, and we're not going to let you die on us. And I didn't quit that day, but another 8 months went by, and a friend of mine came to me, and he had been clean for 3 years. He hadn't done anything. He was my equal. This is very key to my story. He was my equal. He had started cocaine at the same time, switched to crack at the same time. For 3 years, he had been clean. He had found God. He came to me. He said, "The Lord led me here." I said, "Dick, I haven't seen you in a year." But he said, "As long as you're here," I was losing everything. And he said, "As long as you're here, I have some questions for you." I said, "Is it boring?" He said, "No, man, it ain't. It's not boring." and these questions that only I could trust him on. So, but a month later, on January 16, 2009, I knew. When people talk about bottoms, everybody's in my addiction network. I don't even let people put their bottoms up because everybody's bottom could be different. And one addict could say, "Oh, I can wait longer now." Well, for me, I knew my calling that door was gonna be shut forever. I knew it couldn't go one more day, and so I prayed to God. I said, "Okay, I'll do the." It was kind of like a deal. I said, "I want to be free to the desires for these addictions." Crack, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes, gambling, all this stuff. And then I'll do this platform thing. And I did wake up the next day and they were gone. The desires were gone. Now, 2 months later, I actually went to a thing in our church, an outpatient treatment, where I learned where these pains came from in the first place and addressed them. And so it was, that was the start of, I've never looked back on that. I've never looked back.
Mike, I've interviewed probably several hundred recovering men and women over a decade plus. I've never heard anybody tell me that their dealers had an intervention for them. That's
right.
That's remarkable, and it leads me to really confirm what you alluded to, and that is that God had a plan for you, because that doesn't happen naturally. What do you think? Why do you think?
Well,
you've had time to look back on it. Why do you think God wanted you to get through that?
Well, it was for this bigger platform. I mean, I wouldn't change anything that happened to me if I'm not where I'm at right now. And I even had at that same time, I'll tell you this is, you talk about things that don't happen that you haven't heard. at that same time, in that same month, our town cop, I had a warrant out for my arrest for something I didn't do, but I had to go from the inner city of Minneapolis to deliver these papers to my brother, or MyPillow would be gone forever. So I snuck in. We were working on this little schoolhouse, and I drove in there. And sure enough, what are the odds? Larry, the cop, he's right there. And I get out of the car. I'm going to run these papers, and he goes, "Mike, stop right there." And I said, "Larry," I said, if I don't get these papers to my brother, millions of people are going to be affected in the future. I said, it's something about this pillow, and it's a platform for God, for a bigger calling that I'm going to be speaking out later in life. And they said, you're going to be to blame, Larry. And then Larry goes, and I said, you know what? I'm going to be found innocent, Larry, on Tuesday anyway. And if you arrest me anytime, I promise I'll have cocaine on me. And Larry looked at me, and he says, go or call your brother. Now, 7 years later, I seen Larry just this last September here at our hometown parade. He pulled up. I hadn't seen him in 7 or 8 years since that day. And he got up. I said, Larry, he says, Mike, I said, he goes, do you remember what I did? He goes, do you remember what I did? He goes, am I going to be in your book? And I go, yeah. I go, yes, Larry, we took a picture for the book. But back then I knew that that it was just a big platform and that God had this big plan. And now, I mean, my friends all see, I mean, I was just at the White House with the president. I don't know if you know my pastor, but he's got signing the 800-page opiate bill. And with the network I've set up now, the Lindell Recovery Network, which is going to be coming out, it's going to help millions and millions of people. I think, all these hundreds of thousands for sure.
This episode of the Big Impact Podcast is brought to you by you, or someone just like you who enjoys the positive, uplifting, inspiring guests we present every week and decided to support the show by going to patreon.com/bigimpact and becoming a monthly supporter of $5, $10, $50, or whatever amount you desire. Your support helps us cover production and web hosting expenses, but wait, there's more. If you'll commit to being an Impact partner with a monthly gift of $25 or more, we've got some special Big Impact gear just for you. You'll see all the details on patreon.com/bigimpact. I hope you'll check it out and continue to help us continue to share positive content in this culture that so badly needs it. Before we go any further on this edition of the Big Impact Podcast, I want to share with you the results of some homework I've been doing, because one of my goals has been to at least double the size of our audience since we started back in early 2017. As it turns out, you are the key to helping make that possible by going into iTunes and giving us a 5-star rating if you happen to like the program. And the other way is if you will share the link to each episode that you enjoy. It's like the old shampoo commercial, and he told 2 friends, and so on and so on. There's no other secret formula for success or growth other than our audience helping spread the word. So if you would please go into iTunes and consider giving the Big Impact Podcast a 5-star rating, that will help us turn up in the search results. And if you'll share the link, it'll expose our uplifting, inspiring, and positive content to your friends and beyond. We are visiting with Mike Lindell, the creator of MyPillow, and a man with a testimony that is definitely worthy of telling to an audience around the world. Mike, as you traced us just a few moments ago back through that addiction and recovery and what you turned out to do with it, you now have this global footprint with your company. And there's no chance that back when you started it, you could have seen that coming. Did you?
The footprint where I'm at now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I actually did. I seen MyPillow. I would get these dreams, and God would show me these prophetic dreams, and that's why I would tell my friends and stuff. And I said, it's going to be the biggest company someday, but that's just the platform of fame so I can go out and evangelize and help addicts, and to see it all come to fruition. I mean, right now, I set up this Lindell Recovery Network. The way that's going to work is like you're going to put in your name, you're going to put in your age and what you're addicted to. And all these stories I'm gathering, I hope are going to come down just like mine, but it's going to be their match. So they're going to go, wow, this guy made it through. I can make it through. And all the treatment centers that I have vetted, which are all your faith-based, Salvation Army, Teen Challenge, Union Gospel, the ones that I know work, and I'm going to be like their tour guide on the website and say, hey, now go over here and get some help here. And when you get out, I'm going to be waiting there for you. And when they get out, I have paid mentors that are going to be paid from all over the country, one of the biggest employers in this country, and that's going to be their full-time job, mentoring these guys coming out of these faith-based centers. And I already have employees or employers lined up. They're going to take these. They do it right now for like Salvation Army because they're great people, and now they've been, their inner pains have been addressed, and they've come out of there with Jesus, and it's going to be one amazing thing, and going to save so many people.
That is incredible. And I'm looking back through some of your story as it is on your website, and here we are now back in 1977, when a teenage Mike has got a sore neck. Because one of the overarching questions to all of this Mike Lindell story is, okay, you've obviously got a high motor. You're driven. You are ready to go. You're energetic and you're into it. But the follow-up question to that is, how did he determine that pillows was going to be his calling? So would you take our listeners back to why pillows?
Yeah, that is, I don't know which one we have on the website, but I'll tell you one. I was working at a grocery store and a drive-in theater back in the 1970s, and the grocery store, I remember taking one of my first checks, it was like $60 or $70, and going out and buying, I go, my shoulders, I got, as you get into your teenage years, your body expands, your shoulders expand, and now I can look back and say, wow, no, all of a sudden I wasn't getting good sleep. My neck was sore, headaches in the morning, all these things, stacking pillows. I thought, well, maybe if I go out and spend more money, it'll be a better pillow. I literally went to a department store and bought a $70 pillow back in 1970. Wow. It was the most expensive pillow I could find. And it was a down pillow. It didn't work, and they wouldn't let me return it. I was, it was, but I just remember that. What are the odds? I always look at what are the odds of things. Yeah. And in fact, the name of my book's called What Are the Odds? When it comes out, what are the odds from crack addict to CEO? But I, to then throughout my life, I tried different pillows and nothing worked. And one night I had a dream. I actually dreamt the name MyPillow first, and I wrote MyPillow all over the house. And one of my daughters came upstairs. She's like 10 years old. She goes, "What are you doing? It's like 2 a.m. She goes, I said, "I'm going to invent this pillow. It's going to be called MyPillow." I said, "It's going to change the world." And I'm all excited. And she grabbed her glass of water and she goes, "That's really random, Dad." And she went downstairs. and then that week, we didn't have any money in that, but that week or actually that next month, the kids kept asking their mother, they go, "When's he going to get over this pillow thing?" She goes, "Oh, it's just a phase. It'll pass. And our first little factory this little garage was right across the street. I said, "It's not passing. Let's go."
Man, you know what? One of the things that always catches my attention is when a business idea becomes successful enough that the person who had the idea is surprised by it and maybe even under-equipped. For instance, there's some logistical maneuvering that you had to take care of to meet the demand. Like, you can't just keep making stuff in your garage with a little bit of material. You had to explode. You had to get resources in.
Right.
How did you learn all this, Mike? It's not like you came from a background of business training and had some corporate guru riding alongside.
No, I had street smarts though, and I had common sense. But when we went from 5 employees to 500 in 40 days, that I had to plan for that 8 months in advance. I could see that future, and I would, in my mind, do the math in my head and say, okay, we're going to need. It was a patented fabric and a patented foam on the inside, a patented fill, and I literally had to go out to the company I still deal with to this day. It's called Santee, and I go out to him, and he was an entrepreneur. from the old school. And that particular day in May, they wouldn't give credit. His exact words back then, in fact, 2 years prior, he says, "I don't care if you're Donald Trump, we're not giving you credit." And this was in like 2009 when he had said that to me, because it's a patented fabric. And then here it gets to be 2011, and I come to them that summer, and I had just launched these ads that I had made myself with just here's some guy holding a pillow instead of traditional advertising with somebody laying on a bed and going, "Ooh, they look so nice, and beautiful, And I wrote this ad, and everyone wrote me and said that these big PR companies out of New York said, "This is the worst ad I've ever seen. Did you write this yourself?" And I'm going, yes, I did write it myself, but I didn't tell them. I go, I just like branding. I've never branded in my life. I'll tell you that in a second. But what every one of those newspaper ads were, if it cost me $1,000, I was taking in $5,000. They were the most successful ad. I believe they're still the most successful ad in the history of the United States. Well, those ads at that moment in time, when I went out to Santee, I had to get credit, millions of dollars of credit to buy this fabric and these gray goods ahead of time for this launch in October, this infomercial that wasn't even made yet. And I went there, and there was all these, C's, and the CFO guy and all these C's. I didn't even know what C's were. And they walk in there, and here that particular day, the USA Today and the Wall Street Journal had come out with my ad in there, and it looked like a news story, kind of like. And here the Leon came walking out. He's the owner. He came walking out with both of them in his hand, and that was the first day those two papers had dropped. But it gave me so much credibility that I was going places, that we were going to go places. Well, anyway, he sat down, and I told him my dream of this infomercial, and I said, "Yeah, but I'm going to need a couple $1 million worth of gray goods." I said, "I'm going to go from," here's what I told him. I said, "I'm going to go from, I know I did 300,000 this year. Next year, I'm going to do 150 million. And I'm going to do it over, and I'm going to do it overnight. I'm going to do it right out of the gate.
From 300 grand to 150 mil.
Yeah, and I'm going to do it right out of the gate. But first, it's going to, because the numbers are going to, whatever you do, that's what it's going to be. I'm going to scale up very fast." And anyway, I'm telling him this, and he looked at me, he goes, "You really think you can do that?" I said, "I know I can." I said it with such passion, and I knew I was going to. And he turned to his CFO guy. He says, "Order the gray goods." And the guy goes, "We have no credit on him. They had nothing on me." He goes, he doesn't have anything. And, and he goes, he just turned back to me and he says, "Are you sure you can do that?" I said, 100% I can do that. I realized they wouldn't have been able to do anything with that fabric because they had MyPillow printed all over it, And he agreed to do it. I walked out of there. I go, "Well, that part's done." And then I had to go to my patented fill place and tell them that I wanted 30-day credit. Now, that was a little easier, because when you're doing 30-day credit and someone tells you you're going to go from 200,000 or 300,000 to 150 million and you're going to do it overnight, they're not going to believe you, but they're probably going to give you. In fact, he's even said, I gave him 30-day credit because I really didn't think this is like impossible.
Yeah.
But that 30-day credit turned out to be a lot of money, and it made them very worried, because all of a sudden you just gave somebody millions of dollars worth of credit because you didn't put a cap on it.
You were Shark Tank before there was Shark Tank.
Yeah, well, I had to talk these sharks into money. It's funny. The week after I had quit all my crack cocaine and everything, people were taking my company, and the guy that was middling me on the fabric at the time, he was middling from the guys I just told you about. Well, all of a sudden he goes, "You need to pay cash now, Mike." And I needed 30 grand cash, and I said, this is one day after I got I've quit everything. And he goes, and I go, "Wow, you're in on it too. Everybody's taking, these guys I broke bread with, they're stealing everything I have. They took all my shows." And anyway, he goes, I said, "Well, can I have like a week?" And he goes, "Yeah, you can have till next week." Anyway, it was that Friday. I needed to have this money by 1:00 in the afternoon. And I went into these guys I didn't even know at 10 in the morning with all I had was a story. I said, "I have this pillow." I went in there with a pillow. And remember, I couldn't talk to people. And there were so many C's in that room, a CIEIO, a CFO, a COO, and eight people lined up like cordwood. And I come in there and I got I had a T-shirt on and a pillow, and back then I wouldn't have even known how to eat with 2 forks, Well, anyway, I walk in the door, and here I tell them about, I got this pillow. I'm going to do shows. These guys took my company. I need $30,000 to pay them to get my fabric back they took and all this stuff. And I used to be a crack cocaine addict. And one of their guys go, well, when did you quit crack? And I go, last Thursday.
Yeah.
and 4 of them got up and left the room like Shark Tank and said, for that reason, we're out. The other four, I said, well, now you're all going to put in $7,500. I'm going to pay back $10,000 each. And long story short, they ended up doing it. And that day, that was another divine appointment that God just protected me and, where to go on. And it was just pretty amazing. And when we got so big so fast in 2011 and 12, by the time the dust cleared in the summer, I was about $3 or $4 million in debt, even taking in all that money, because these guys all these other companies had taken advantage of me. And my handshake is my word.
Yeah, not them.
And I didn't. And so now I had to learn real quick, what am I going to do? I have no credit. I never borrowed any money from any bank ever. I didn't, they wouldn't borrow it to me. And you can't go to a bank and say, hey, I'm going to do $100 million. Will you give me some money? Yeah. So, but I learned a lot from 2012 and the business practices I put in today. It's just amazing with my pillow. I have 1,600 employees. We don't have your typical HR. We have ER, employee relations, where we help them. We actually help the employees. If there's a deviation in their behavior, I'll get them help. I know I'm well versed in addiction. We never have problems. It's like a big family. It comes down from me at the top, and then we look for in deviations and blocks. If one of my sectors has a deviation in it, or they have to call me. 500 of my employees have my direct number, but if I don't get a call, I know everything's fine, because if you don't have people that don't call in corporate America, it's like, oh, if you call the CEO, it's a sign of weakness. I can't. I brought in to make this, on the third quarter, section 3. Boy, we're up in the third quarter. Well, you know what? So much is left behind because you didn't fix that deviation or learn from it during that time span. And that's what we do at MyPillow all day long is we watch our deviations, and if somebody's blocked, I unblock them in about 5 minutes.
Here on The Big Impact, we stay focused on the positive, inspiring, and uplifting, but we also know that there are times when life turns in the opposite direction, and suddenly you find yourself drowning in tension, arguments, depression, and pain because your marriage isn't doing all that well. For those reasons, I host another program called Marriage Talk. Every Friday, we release a new episode where a 20-plus year licensed counselor and therapist addresses questions, concerns, and issues sent in by our listeners. You'll find Marriage Talk on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and our entire 2-year archive of programs is available for free at marriagetalk.org. We love celebrating positive and uplifting stories, and you can have one of those with your soulmate. Don't give up. Instead, give the Marriage Talk podcast a try. Subscribe today or visit marriagetalk.org. I hope you don't mind me taking 60 seconds to save you a ton of money when you travel. But we talk about positive, inspiring, and uplifting things here on The Big Impact, and I've got one for you. I recently joined Select, a next-generation Black Card, concierge, and membership community offering exclusive and unlimited benefits with premier brands worldwide. We're talking up to 70% off at 500,000-plus hotels and resorts, 40% off your full bill at globally renowned restaurants, and discounts with hundreds of premier travel and lifestyle brands. All you need to do is apply for membership today at meetselect.com and see why the Select card is being called Amex for the next generation. Now, when you go to sign up, use promo code IMPACT to save $50 on your Select membership. Go to meetselect.com and use promo code IMPACT to save tons of dough as you enjoy the finer things and places in life. We have just a few moments left with Mike Lindell, the creator of MyPillow, and the man with a story that is just jaw-dropping. It's remarkable, Mike, to see the journey you've been on and continue on. 40 million plus pillows later, the journey continues. To hear the ways that you have chosen to take this business success and use it to help touch lives and to share your testimony, I think that's one of the leading reasons that you've had this level of success. Otherwise, let's look at the practicalities of this from a just a secular standpoint. We've got a guy who's got a pretty rough past, who is featured quite often in commercials, hugging a pillow and with a jingle that dates back to the early days of jingles. Right, your logo's still the same as the one you invented. It's not like you've gone through this massive overhaul. And yet, it's one of the great American success stories. And I'm wondering, from your standpoint, where does it go from here? How much bigger? How much longer does it go?
Well, there's two. Here's where I'm going. It is just a platform for God. For God has protected this platform. I'm speaking out. I just spoke for 50,000 people in Minnesota and 100,000 people at a evangelistic reach out, where I spoke out, told my testimony for Jesus Christ, and that's where that's going. As far as MyPillow, I'm actually coming out with a platform for entrepreneurs. I've gathered, anyone out there that's an entrepreneur, if you email us your ideas, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a platform to put up. It's going to be mystore.com where you can come up, and I have vetted these inventions and stuff and given these entrepreneurs a place to put up their product where millions of eyes are going to see them. And they're going to have, because in our country, so many inventions get taken, copied, and it's very sad. So I'm going to be helping them with MyPillow. We just came out with our new ads today or this weekend. Everything we were sued for, that all these claims, and all these things after I went in full support of our president, they've all been, this company did a study for over the last 2 years on MyPillow, and everything, hundreds of thousands of testimonial people said was true, actually is true. All these things, you're going to see it in all the medical journals and stuff. So I'm hoping to get MyPillow deemed a medical device because of amazing things it does, and that's very exciting. And I'm down doing an infomercial today. I'm coming out with new sheets that are going to change your life. Everything I invent or do has got to help people, either physically, mentally, or in their faith. Otherwise, why do it? I know the money. If people are too much money driven, they lose things in translation.
Are people taking the time to stop by the factory and tour it? I mean, is it becoming a destination in Minnesota?
All the time. Yeah, I get calls from all over, and people you wouldn't even imagine that want to tour that from all walks of life. And we don't. They come in. We do massive. In fact, today there's one going on all day. When I try and get there as much as I can to be part of it. I love going back and being right in with the people. Anybody that knows me out there, I've when I'm in public, it's all positive. I love. That's what people ask me all the time. They say, Mike, how can you have that much passion for a pillow 13 years later? It's the people that come up to me and how it's changed their lives for the better. I mean, sleep affects everything we do, and this quality sleep that you get with MyPillow, it does change your life, and it does impact you. And now for me, that's what keeps me going, the look on their face, and they're so grateful. And I just tell them, you know what, I give the glory to God, and it's not me, but thank you. At least I know what I'm doing is I'm doing God's work, and it's getting, everything I said back then, even though my drug dealers, that one of them works for me now. He's a born again Christian, and the other two don't deal anymore. So that intervention way back then came full circle.
And the guy who used to hide behind a table because he didn't want to talk to people now talks to people all the time, and there's no table in between.
That's right. That's come a long way.
Well, Mike, in my world, we need to try. We have not tried MyPillow yet. I have to, in full disclosure, I have not put my head on one of your pillows yet. So we're going to have to fix that in the coming days. And I can't thank you enough for the time you've taken to share your testimony. I know that you get lots of requests, and it does mean a lot to me that you would share that story with the Big Impact audience. you are truly making a big impact in what you do. And like you said, it doesn't make a lot of technical, literal sense. It's a pillow, but it's so much more than that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Mike, we wish you the very best, a wonderful holiday season, and I'm sure that this is like peak season in your world for the product as well. So let me close by letting you sell the soap. What are the big deals going on at the world of MyPillow?
Well, if you go to MyPillow, you can go and use promo. Hey, I'm going to let everybody use promo code Mike today. You can save up to 50% on everything on the website.
Wow.
We'll make it a very special day, but I go back in time where, back when I started out, Christmas was my slowest time of year because it was like getting socks from your aunt when you were a kid. and now it's the most requested gift. Last year, I would get calls from everyone going, it'd be a couple and the husband opens his present. He got a MyPillow from his wife and she opens hers. Yay, I got one too, That was just, and little kids come up to me. I was just down at Hurricane Michael. And I was giving out pillows there. We gave out 10,000 of them. And I went to this, all these kids that were impacted from third graders to 12th graders. But the little ones coming up and hugging me and they're going, and it was just so amazing. And they're all excited to get a MyPillow and it was just I brought tears to my eyes down there with all the devastation, all the stuff they're going through. But hopefully it helps them a little bit, get some sleep at night, and get some little bit of an oasis in what they're going through.
And let us just say this in closing: for any of you listening who have perhaps within your family someone who is dealing with addiction, don't give up on them. Don't give up on them. There is hope. There is hope for healing and for recovery and for productivity. And Mike Lindell is a living, breathing, fire-breathing example of that.
Yeah. And I want to say one more thing on that with addiction. You go to your Teen Challenge or Salvation Army, and nobody knows Salvation Army is one of the best treatment facilities in the United States or anywhere in the world. They've been doing it since 1880. I don't work for them, but I'm telling you, they are successful. There's no Rule 25 required, no insurance required, and they're of occupancy and they work. And that's where if people coming out, Mike, what can I do with my person that's addicted? Bring them down there. It's also like an apprentice. They train you, come out of there, you have jobs. It's just amazing.
Love it. I love it, Mike. Hey, I know you've got to go. You've got an infomercial to shoot and a whole lot of things to do. Thank you again. Can't thank you enough. Hopefully someday I'll get a chance to shake your hand in person and tell you thanks for the encouragement.
Well, thanks. God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to this insightful, encouraging, and uplifting edition of the Big Impact Podcast. We would love to hear your thoughts, so reach out to us through the website at bigimpactpodcast.com or on our Facebook page and on Twitter at Big Impact. We would love to hear from you not only with your thoughts on this week's episode, but on any other great guest ideas you might have. Somebody that you know is inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting. And don't forget, you can go back and listen to every episode of the Big Impact we've ever done for free on our website, bigimpactpodcast.com. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Hobson, and we'll talk to you again next week with another edition of the Big Impact Podcast.